I am thrilled to get to hang out with all of you here, DC folks, and I see some familiar faces from outside of the DC area, so this is kind of cool for me. Um, so jumping right in, business value estimation. What I do is kind of like what Lightspeed does, right? So I work with organizations that are adopting Scrum or other Agile practices, and also organizations that are evolving, right, their Scrum and related Agile practices. And I find that when I first go, to work with an organization, very often they're already doing some sort of effort estimation. And some places do it better than others and in all of that. But it's very uncommon for me to find that they're already doing value estimation. And that's unfortunate because when you have an effort estimate for each item in your backlog and a value estimate for each item, you can calculate an ROI score, right? Return on investment. Things that are lots of value for low effort, hey, those are the quick wins. We probably want to move those up towards the top of the backlog and do those soon. Things that are like not very much value and a lot of effort, hey, maybe we shouldn't be doing those at all. And it brings a level of rationality to the prioritization process that is frequently missing, right? I've worked with lots of really big organizations that you would think, oh yeah, they really got it down to a science. And it's still like, who yelled the loudest the most recently, or, who's the highest paid person in the room and what do they think we should do, things like that. So business value estimation just really revolutionizes how we go about choosing what we work on. And it's one of the things that, I've been teaching this for, goodness, 15 plus years now. And it's one of the things that people consistently come back to me and say, oh my goodness, right? This made a huge difference in our organization once we started doing this. So I'm excited to share it with you. So when I think about like, well, why aren't people doing this already? I think it's because there's some myths or misunderstandings about the nature of business value that kind of get in our way in terms of dealing with business value effectively. So I just want to touch on a couple of these myths or misunderstandings briefly to kind of set the stage. So perhaps the most common myth or misunderstanding is that business value is money. That we should be able to put like a dollar amount or whatever your currency of choice is on every item in our product backlog. And alas, value is not that simple, right? Money is a pretty simple construct, right? We can represent it with a single number, right? How much do you have? Or more is better. Value is actually a pretty complex, multi-dimensional construct. Because while it's true, right, organizations value money. And even with money, they value it in kind of different, from different viewpoints or in different ways, right? We value revenue, we value cost savings, we value profit. But we also value other things that we cannot kind of directly tie to the money, at least not in the near term or medium term. So business value is multidimensional. Yes, organizations value money, but they value other things as well, right? We might value increasing market share, for example. And we might do things that in the near to medium term are actually going to result in less revenue or less profit, but we're doing it because we think it'll increase market share. Strategically, we value that. We might value breaking into new markets, right? Like, oh my goodness, we need to learn how to do business in China. There's 1 billion people there. We might lose money for many, many years trying to figure out how to do business in China, but we might value that strategically, for example. So just maybe drop some things in the chat here. What are some other things that businesses value, right? Essentially, anything the business is willing to expend resources in order to pursue is by definition something the business values. So what are some things that organizations value? Go ahead and drop your thoughts in the chat. Efficiency. Yeah, we value efficiency gains. I like that. What else? Increasing market share. Yep, absolutely. Um, oh yeah, and we can do all sorts of fancy like net present value calculations and all of that, which are amazing tools for decision making and planning. We might value strategic partnerships. We might value being perceived as innovative or first in class. We might value, I like this, reduction. Insert things from headcount, processing time, real estate, environmental footprint, etc. Right? We might value social impact. We might value growth, right? We might value being a good corporate citizen in the spaces that we play. We might value attracting and retaining great people, right? So lots of things that a business values or an organization values. So it's a multidimensional construct. It's not something we can actually represent accurately with a single number. So okay, right? I can see where that would get in the way of people dealing effectively with it. The next one is uh, kind of a misunderstanding about like, well, how could we possibly measure value? Can we measure value? Yeah, very often we can, and I would say we should. I'm going to drop a link in the chat to ways we can measure the value of the things that we've produced. Essentially, going in before we build it, we have to say, oh, what's the value that we're expecting from this, right? Maybe we're going to do a redesign of the checkout process on our website, and we've decided that we think the value is it will increase the average order by 10%. Okay, great. That sets us up to be able to measure the value of what we produced, right? Did we get the results that we wanted? Did we get better results, not as good as results? And that's super valuable. The only problem with that is in that case, number one, we can only measure pretty much one or two dimensions of the value, not all of the multiple dimensions of the value. Number two, it's a trailing indicator, right? We have to build the thing and then see how it performs to be able to assess, right? Did it create the value that we were hoping for? And as a product owner or somebody like a product owner who's trying to prioritize a backlog, I need leading indicators, right? I need things that will help me predict which things are going to be more valuable. Um, and then the next myth or misunderstanding is that there is a essentially objective truth about business value. And at least before we build the stuff, alas, that's not true. We are building our products and doing our work for our stakeholders. And value is in the eyes of the stakeholders. So it's inherently subjective, right? What do they value? And it's changing all the time, right? What our stakeholders value this quarter might be very different than what they valued last quarter. So let me think about this. Business value is a complex, multi-dimensional concept. When we can measure it directly, it's after we've built something, so that's a little hard to help us choose what to build. It's subjective, not objective, and it's constantly shifting and changing. This seems completely intractable, right? I give up. Let's go shopping. It turns out that we can estimate business value using some relatively simple, straightforward techniques in ways that is very useful to help us make these prioritization decisions. And as it turns out, very useful for cultivating a really engaged, vibrant stakeholder community, which is kind of super important as well, right? If we have a really engaged stakeholder community, oh, we're gonna get way better information about what should we build, right? What are the features? What are the things that our stakeholders really need and value? So I'm going to share with you today my very favorite technique for business value estimation. Now, this technique is based on a related technique that we use to estimate effort with teams. That's called easy estimation with story points. There'll be a link in the tool that we're using to that technique. The mechanics of it are very, very similar. But the audience for it, the participants for it are very different, right? When we're estimating effort, oh, that's the team that's going to do the work. When we're estimating value, it's the stakeholders, right? The people that we're doing the work for, that we want to gather together so we can create value estimates. So first thing I want to do is drop a link in the chat to a copy of the tool we're going to be using. So it looks like you all got settled into your spreadsheets. So let me give you a little tour of the tool, and then I'll talk about the context of the activity. So let me give a visual tour here. There we go. All right. So the tool is basically split up into three sections. This section over here is what I call the estimating grid. And this is where you will be moving potential backlog items to give them value estimates. And so we have rows with numbers. Things that get, a value estimate of 1 will go here. Things that feel like they're twice as valuable as that go here. Things that are 21 times more valuable go here, right? Things that are 121,000 times more valuable go here. We're using the Fibonacci sequence, right? Every number is the previous two added together. The spreadsheet goes pretty high, but if you feel like, no, we need even bigger numbers, okay, grab the bottom one, drag down, you'll get more numbers. At some point, I'm sure we'll blow up Google Sheets, but I think we'll get big enough numbers before that happens. It's a relative scale. And so to anchor the scale, to say, well, what's a value of 1? What does that mean? We need an example item. So here's where I'm going to set up the context. So all of you fine folks are going to be participating in a reality TV show, right? And as part of this reality TV show, the network, the reality TV show network, is going to give you and your team a home somewhere in the greater DC metro area. And, we're giving it to you for free. So it's a free home in the DC metro area. At the end of the show, you get to sell the house and split all the proceeds, right? And it'll all be profit because it didn't cost you anything. So you're gonna make a lot of money on this, right? DC metro area has some pricey real estate for sure. But before you get to sell this home and get all that money, you are going to have to live together with your teammates in this house for a year. I know you thought you were signing up for like a 1-hour lunchtime meetup, right? When you fill out the little form, right, to join the meetup, you got to read all the little fine detail, right? The terms and conditions can really be sneaky. So now there's a lot we don't know about this house, but here's what we do know. It's somewhere in kind of the greater DC metro area. It was built sometime in the 1960s. We're not exactly sure exactly when, but sometime in the 1960s. And it hasn't seen any major upgrades or updates or renovations or remodels since it was built. Now, it's a perfectly habitable house. It's not like condemned or anything like that. But, it hasn't had any major upgrades. Right before you move in, right, you and your teammates, we're going to bring in one of our other reality TV shows. And what they do is they do upgrades on houses. And so they're going to swoop in, do a bunch of work on this house right before you move into it. So they're the team, right? They're the team doing the work. Maybe they're a scrum team. You are the stakeholders. And we've gathered you together to help create some value estimates for the work that we're considering doing on the house. Now, point of clarification, we are not building the backlog here. We're simply trying to identify, which of these potential deliverables are more valuable to you and which are less valuable. So in order to get our scale going, we need something that everybody would agree has some value, but not very much. Hardly any value at all. And so to anchor our scale, we're using a new welcome mat, right? If you get a new welcome mat for the house, okay, I guess that's nice. It has some value, not a lot of value, but some. And so anything that your team feels is equally valuable to getting a new welcome mat, oh, you'll place those items here in the row labeled 1. Again, things that feel like they're 55 times more valuable than a new welcome mat can go here. Things that are 610 times more valuable go here, so on and so forth. Now, when we're estimating value, there is a possibility that comes up that really never comes up when we're estimating effort. And that is that we might encounter something that the stakeholders feel like, hey, that has no value to us at all. In fact, maybe even negative value. Show of hands, how many people remember Clippy? Microsoft Office, right? Like Clippy was this little assistant that would pop up and interrupt you, and then you had to watch Clippy do his little Clippy animated dance, and you're like, oh, I was just getting into my flow. Clippy, go away. Eventually, we all learned how to go into the settings and turn Clippy off, all right? Clippy was perhaps the most hated software feature of all time. So Clippy is a great example of a feature that had negative value, for sure, right? So anything that you feel has 0 or negative value, you can put in this row that has the little minus sign in parentheses. So that's what's going on with this part of the tool. This is where we're going to place items to give them estimates. The next part of the tool is right here in the middle. This is a list of who are the stakeholders participating in the estimation activity. And we take turns, one person at a time. So we've got this little, pointer here that you can drag and move around to indicate, hey, whose turn is it anyway? So that's what's going on here in the middle. By the way, for those of you not familiar with drag and drop in Google Sheets, you click into a cell, hover over the top of that cell till you get the little mitt, and then you can drag it wherever you want it. And if you drag it someplace you didn't mean to, whoops, undo is your friend. And just remember, it's got to be the person who did the thing that undoes the thing. All right, and the next section is here. This is the list of potential backlog items that we want to create estimates for. And for purposes of this activity, I've obscured them. I actually find that estimation goes better when the group is just considering one item at a time and building up their collection of estimated items. Strictly speaking, you don't have to keep them hidden, but I find it seems to go better when we do. When I do this in person, we put the items on cards and we have the cards turned over and we flip them over one at a time. So here's what's going to happen. First person, when you get in your breakout room, you'll kick off the activity. The only thing you can do, first person, is reveal the top item and put it on the estimation grid. So I'll click on the first item and I'll reveal it by going up to the fill color tool. It's this one up here. Looks kind of like a paint bucket being poured out. And I'll choose reset. And my first item is resurfacing the driveway. Okay, that's definitely more valuable to me than a new welcome mat. I think maybe 34 times more valuable than a new welcome mat. So I'm going to put it there. All right, then we move on. The next person gets their turn. And from here on out, when it's your turn, you have a choice. If you agree with the value estimates that your colleagues have created so far, then go ahead and grab the next item from the list, reveal it, place it on the grid where you think it goes. If, however, you strongly disagree with a value estimate, you can use your turn to change the estimate on one item by dragging it somewhere else. So when it's your turn, you get to affect the estimates by one, either by changing one estimate or estimating one new item. So here, other Chris looks at this and says, yeah, resurface driveway 34. I'm good with that. So I'll click on the next item. I will go up to the fill color tool, choose reset. Crown moldings. So here's the thing. Ever since the pandemic and I'm working at home all the time, the interior really matters a lot to me. And I really like crown moldings. So to me, they are even more valuable than resurfacing the driveway. So I'm going to put them here. So on and so forth. Chris with a K takes a turn, looks at this and says, yeah, that's fine. And so they reveal the next item. An alarm system. So here's the thing. I lived in a house that had an alarm system, right? At first we thought, oh, this is great, right? We'll be safer. It was a pain in the butt. It was going off all the time when we didn't want it to, waking us up in the middle of the night, bothering our neighbors. The police were coming out. So honestly, I don't want an alarm system. I'm going to put it in the zero or negative value. So on and so forth, right? People taking their turn, placing things. Ooh, whirlpool tub, I like that. Uh, and then once you get to the bottom, everyone's had a turn. Yeah, you just wrap around, go back to the first person again. And again, they can use their turn to change an item or bring an item in. So that's what you're going to be doing. My advice is this: do what I did. When it's your turn, think out loud. Explain why you think this thing is more valuable, less valuable than the other things on the board. Feel free to engage with your colleagues, ask questions, listen to their advice and their opinions. But remember, when it's your turn, it really is your turn. You don't have to get everybody to agree before you put an item on the board. If they disagree, they can use their turn to move it. But I do find that the whole thing goes better, smoother, and is more valuable when people are explaining their thought process as they're moving the items. And welcome back, everybody. Welcome back. So you made some progress. It was kind of fun to peek in over your shoulders at the spreadsheets and see how things were going. I'm really interested to hear from some folks. What did you notice was happening in your breakout room? So if you wouldn't mind doing the little hand raise thing in Zoom, so that'll queue you up and we can call on you one-on-one. Really want to hear some observations. What did you notice was happening with you and your colleagues as you were making the value estimates?
What I did notice was that a lot of people's decisions of where to rank or estimate things were based upon their personal life and preferences. So that had a lot of influence where things were put. For example, someone mentioned allergies, so the hardwood floor was important, et cetera, et cetera. So I noticed that influence there.
Oh, I love it. So one of the things I'm hearing is that one of the dimensions of value that you were discovering as a group of stakeholders was like quality of life while you were living in the house. And kind of under that umbrella, different stakeholders probably value different things, right? Different stakeholders would get more or less value from some of the features, right? Someone with allergies would probably get a lot of value from the hardwood floors, for example. Nice. Teresa, what did you notice?
We had some difficulty just focusing on value because some of the things were conflicting. So, if we decided to do all hardwood floors, we wouldn't need carpet cleaning. So like there's some like dependencies on things, but if we, left some carpet and did some hardwood, then that was different. And then also like sequencing, you don't want to paint when you're still doing construction, which is not a value judgment. But then if you're doing the highest value things potentially first, I think we were just thinking about a lot of different dimensions, and it's hard to just think about value.
Oh, there's so much richness in your comment here. I want to pull out a few pieces of this. This is so good. So one of the things is I find that people are not kind of generally used to thinking about value kind of as a standalone thing, right? People often want to jump to prioritization or ordering, right? We'll do this first, we'll do that second, right? It's like, well, hold on. If we can identify value first, then that can be one of the factors in deciding the ordering. But I find that when I facilitate this activity, helping people come back to, ooh, we're really trying to focus on value, right? For you as a stakeholder, do you experience more value when you have hardwood floors, or do you experience more value when you have new kitchen counters, right? Which do you find more valuable? The other thing that plays into this sometimes is sometimes people have a hard time getting away from like thinking about the cost, right? And it's like we don't know the cost yet, right? The team hasn't gone in and done their assessment of the work, and so sometimes, when I'm facilitating this, I'll say, "Well, imagine that they're all free. Which ones would you want more?" Is so rich. Is that it turns out, just like in kind of the technical dimension of doing the work, there are dependencies. There are also value dependencies. right? The value of cleaning the carpets might be very much dependent on, well, are we going to get the hardwood floors or not? And so in a case like that, I generally recommend estimate it both ways. The value of the carpet cleaning, if we're going to be able to get the hardwood floors. Maybe we're like, oh, there'll be hardly any carpet left, so, low value. Okay, well, what if it turns out we're not going to be able to get the hardwood floors? Oh, maybe it's much more valuable to us then. So yeah, it turns out that there are value dependencies, just like there are implementation dependencies. What
Well,
else
how do you recommend capturing that?
Ah, so I recommend run it both ways. And then as you're, starting to build the backlog, you're going to have to kind of consider, all right, does it, for example, does it look like we're going to get the hardwood floors? If so, okay, I'm going with the lower value. Because it is dependent, right? So that's what I would recommend doing, because it may not be until we go to the team and get their estimates and then start to try to build a timeline that we're going to be able to figure out, is this thing even, is it feasible? Are we going to be able to get it? Is that helpful?
Yeah, but it's like the value's not fixed. It's changing depending on other things. So you can't, you know, set the value and leave it.
Yeah, yeah. And so you probably have to, if you set up whatever tool you use to manage your backlog to include a value field, then you probably got to go with, well, based on the current information we have, what do we think is more likely? We'll go with that one. And then, we'll have to note somewhere that, oh yeah, if we don't get this, then the value changes, in this way. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Couple more minutes. Love to hear a couple of more observations or questions or comments.
Chris, I have a question.
Yes.
I am thinking about a client I already have. I work as a consultant, and they have this. It's a software enterprise, and they usually have the requirements putting them on cards, and they are not agile.
Mhm.
The first thing that I had to say, they put the requirements on cards, and then they make this kind of planning poker. They try to be agile, but they don't.
Uh-huh.
Um, and the thing is that when they put this the score to the card,
Hmm.
they do it thinking about the difficulty of the task that they are going to make, and not about the value it is going to bring to their own customers or to their own business. So, what would you recommend me to do to help them on this?
Yeah. So the good news is, right, it sounds like they're doing something to get like essentially an effort or a work estimate, right? That's what that sounds like. That activity sounds like. So that's a great start. And then, whatever mechanics they're using, moving the cards around and all that to get effort estimates, you can probably use those same mechanics, but now do it with the stakeholders to, just like we've been doing here, and say, okay, we want to do this by value now. And, which things are more valuable, which things are less valuable.
Yeah.
And let me drop a link in the chat real quick to a video. If I can find it. Okay, I will find it in a minute. I've got a video that kind of demos like doing this with cards essentially. And so I'll share that with you in just a moment.
Thank you.
Other comments or questions?
Thank you very much. It will be very useful to me.
Yeah. There we go.
I think not everybody in our group was able to articulate exactly why they wanted to assign a specific value. And as you go along, if someone can't articulate why they feel it has value, that could become contentious. It didn't in our group, but we're just starting.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that that is, I'll follow that under good problems to have. because it's the beginning of a group starting to move from, we don't really understand why we're doing what we're doing other than certain people feel like it's important. And it's starting to open up those questions of, why is it important, right? How will we know? What are the dimensions of value that are at play here? And I find that over time, the conversations get richer and richer and deeper and deeper. So for example, you might have two stakeholders who are like, no, my thing should go above yours. No, my thing should go above yours. And it'll lead us to a discussion of like, oh, well, tell us why your thing is so valuable, right? And they'll be like, well, it's going to impact, 40% of our user base. It's like, oh, okay, right? And so we start to like get that information surfaced. And one of the things that I love about this is it's getting that information shared among the stakeholder community, right? Historically, when I was a product owner, I would have these like one-on-one meetings with my important stakeholders, and they would like tell me why their stuff was so valuable and had to happen and needed to be top priority. And I was kind of really stuck in the middle, right, between the interests of all these different stakeholders. And one of the things I love about this technique is it kind of brings the stakeholders together and it starts to form this community where, yes, every stakeholder really wants their stuff. That's not going to change. But we're starting to get a shared understanding of all the ways that this product creates value. And so, it works out better. I would like to share some links and opportunities to dive into this deeper if you would like. So first off, here's my upcoming events. I'll call out in particular, a couple of times a month, I hold free online open office hours. So this is an opportunity to just show up, ask any questions that you have, discuss any topics that you have. And not only to get to hear, well, what does Chris think? But we've got like a really great community of regular participants with a variety of experiences that also chime in and share their thoughts. The conversations are really rich. I learn something every time, that we do these. So encourage you to come out to that. I will briefly pimp that I teach workshops just like LifeSpeed. So there's my upcoming workshops. If you are a job seeker, we've got special pricing for you. The myths that I spoke about, here's an article about those. And so there's some resources and ways to get a hold of me. And I'm going to just say thank you for having me here. This was really, really fun. Really good to meet you all.